All right, guys, the mock draft 1.0 before the combine is here. Tyler was all giddy about this. He was all like, "Hell yeah, like I'm ready to go, dude!" Like, so we're gonna see
You already know.
what he has to offer. He has some dream mock that he has to give you, which he'll give you at the end of the podcast. But first, we're gonna get to our two off season moves that we're gonna make. Now, these could be trades. These could be free agent signings, whatever it may be. But the trade's got to be really realistic. So Tyler,
Yep.
what is your moves?
Yeah. So, I mean, mine are pretty they align pretty similar to a lot of people's kind of dream boards. So I kind of have a couple moves that I would really like to see us make, and so the first one is just keeping it obvious with the Detroit or the Los Angeles Rams ties and getting Bobby Wagner in free agency. I think that that's a huge move. I mean, I still think he's a top three linebacker in the league. He finished number one last year in all coverage linebackers. So I think there's a huge spot, for him on this team. And then another, depending on the price tag, is going to be TJ Edwards from the Eagles.
Okay.
So I really like each of those guys. I think we need an athletic coverage linebacker. Honorable mention being Tremaine Edmonds. Like I said, I think we need a strong veteran linebacker. I just think it's essential for us and where we're at right now. And then I um, want to ship off a second this year, a second next year, and possibly a fourth next year, and bring Jalen Ramsey to Detroit. I think it is a perfect fit. I think anyone saying that he is not a cultural fit or not a playstyle fit is losing their mind. Jalen Ramsey is a top five corner still in this league, and he is on the right side of 30. He is 28. Um, and he is a baller, man. That guy is perfect Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes guy, and he's familiar with a lot of our personnel development, and I think it's a match made in heaven. So bring on Bobby Wagner and Jalen Ramsey, and let's just add on to the whole Detroit Rams theme here for being facetious. And
You
let's get
brought TJ Edwards too.
yeah. Depending on the price, I mean, depending on what Bobby Wagner signs for, if we are to get him, I still think and obviously, you have to pay Ramsey big money. But in the scenario, in this kind of scenario, it's more like a Bobby Wagner or TJ Edwards, in my opinion, just because it's going to be difficult to spend that much money when we're not in a position where we necessarily want to spend a ton of
Okay,
money.
so yeah,
Um,
yeah. So
so yeah,
it's either one of the
yeah, if
linebackers.
I can't get if I can't get Bobby Wagner, I'm gonna want to go out and get um, T.J. Edwards.
Okay, so with mine, I also have a linebacker, and it's gonna be Levante David because I think Levante David would be a perfect guy to put. I think he's more willing to mentor a young linebacker because he did it in Tampa Bay. I think that's something that you need to look at. But here's the thing. Here's where I get a little bit off the track, and Tyler, we're gonna have a little bit of an issue. Um, I also have the Lions trading for Jalen Ramsey, but hear me out when I say this because when we get to my mock draft, you're gonna see exactly why we traded for Jalen Ramsey and what we traded him for. I'm giving the LA Rams a first round pick next year, and
Okay.
that's what I'm doing.
I mean, I don't hate it. I did hear rumor, and I can't cite my source right now because I don't remember exactly who it was from, but I did hear rumor that said those close to LA would consider the starting point for Jalen Ramsey at two second round picks or a combination of like a second and third. So but obviously 2 seconds is depending on where that first round pick is pretty similar in a trade value points for a
Yeah.
first round pick. So we're pretty similar on the trade value there. But yeah, I'm willing to give up a second this year and a second next year. And if we have to throw in like a fourth or a fifth to get it done, Sure, but I think we're both on the similar page about what Ramsey to deserves in
Yeah,
or the Rams deserve in a compensation. And we're both more than happy to bring him here. Like I said, I think
because
that guy is a dog, man.
I
He's a
feel
stud.
I feel like here's the thing. People are gonna be pissed when they see me trade a first round pick next year for Jalen Ramsey. But when I tell you what we did in a trade, in a draft day trade, you're gonna be like, hell to yeah, yeah. Like, let's go. Like, we're gonna have people just going bonkers over this shit. Here's the thing. If we trade our draft pick next year, right? The first round pick, I expect the Lions to be a really good team next year. So I don't think that pick is gonna really matter. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
we're gonna get into why I chose that first round pick because I have a feeling, Tyler, you're gonna like what I have to say too. So, without further ado, we're gonna get to the mock draft.
Yep.
Um,
And to let everybody know, I'm going to go through the first mock that I did, which is more of a realistic mock.
well, I think
The
we're,
second, the mock towards the end, I have kind of a dream mock scenario that
I,
I
th-
would, you know,
I think we're gonna go the way we're gonna do this. Is I'll do pick six. You'll do pick six first. I'll do pick six, and then we'll keep going back and forth.
yep. So I got, like I said, this is my more realistic mock about how the draft should probably go, or is kind of most likely to go. Um, and then we will kind of go from there. So alrighty, in the 2023 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions at the sixth overall pick select Christian Gonzalez, cornerback out of Oregon.
Oof,
I
oof.
love this. I love this guy. I don't know if I love him at six. I kind of would prefer. I chose to not do any trade backs in the scenario. I would prefer Christian Gonzalez and more of like nine or 12. Um, I don't think he'll be there at 18. Kind of why I took him early. But I'm also under the impression too that if you have a guy that is your guy, um, then you've got to go get them. So there's a couple guys in here that I could have kind of gone with just to kind of give you an idea where my mind's at. One would be like Tyree Wilson out of Texas Tech, Devon Witherspoon out of Illinois, and that's pretty much like my three. I myself prefer a trade back at this pick. But that's my pick in this mock, and I'm gonna stick to it. So
Here's where you went wrong. You went cornerback in the top 10. I hate that shit.
I get man Gonzalez and Witherspoon are both to me they're better prospects at the cornerback position than we've seen in a while. I think that
I
you know
just here the only one that the only corner I could ever get myself wrapped around the drafting was last year with Sauce Gardner because I watched him and I just loved the way he played and he didn't give up a touchdown at Cincinnati and I just knew the kid's gonna be good. I don't look at Witherspoon or Gonzalez the same way. Like I look at Gonzalez like I know people love the guy, but this is the reason I'm going with Jalen Ramsey. I traded for Jalen Ramsey, and I'll get to that in a moment. What I traded, who I traded with. Um, so like I'm getting Jalen Ramsey because I don't believe any of these corners that you're gonna get in the first round, like a Witherspoon, like a Witherspoon or a Gonzalez, or a lot of people like Joey Porter, which I do too. But getting him in the top 15 is kind of it. I'm not ready to tote my
right.
boat.
I almost like I said I would love if we traded back with the Panthers for this pick and got their ninth pick and maybe like an additional second or third.
Oh my
Um,
God, Tyler, you're getting to what I'm gonna get to next because
I'm just
here's
saying like not to spoil it, but I don't need a ton back in compensation if we want to move back a few spots. Like we just need something.
yeah I feel listen when I did my mock draft there was one scenario where I couldn't I was thinking how am I gonna get Jalen Ramsey in Detroit? How am I
Right.
gonna how am I gonna get like how am I gonna keep some of my picks that I have? And I kind of did a Stevie Y method. I gathered a bunch of freaking picks from someone to trade up, and that team was the Carolina Panthers.
Awesome. So yeah, what's up? Let's go. Let's roll into your first pick then, eh?
So the Carolina Panthers traded. I'm gonna go back to it. They traded that for pick six. They traded the ninth pick. They gave them the 39th pick, and they gave you a 2024 first round pick. That's what they gave.
Wow.
That's what they gave me. So,
I don't, man, that's a bit steep for them. I don't know if they pay that, but I mean, you are
well,
trading up to
here's
probably
what
get your quarterback.
here is what I'm relying on. Here's what I'm relying on. The reason I voted it with it like back and forth, like, is this a realistic, scenario? And here's where I came up with a solution that this is a realistic scenario. Anthony Richardson's gonna blow it up at the combine. I just know he is because he's an athletic freak. I know that there's gonna be a bidding war to get up to in the top six, especially to get above Oakland. I mean the Vegas Raiders. That's gonna be where
Right.
people are gonna be.
And they're at 7, right?
Yeah, they're at seven. So
Below
people
us.
are gonna try to jump them at six.
Well,
You know,
you know how crazy the people know how crazy the Raiders are. You know,
yeah, the Raiders are freaking insane. So I just look at it like there's gonna be a bidding war. Like, I think Tennessee's gonna get involved in trading up. I really do. I think they're gonna be a team to look out for. But I just think that even if you take away the 39th pick, okay, because I can take away the 39th pick, but I think that that's a realistic trade because I think Carolina's trying to get up there. I mean, you could look at some of the trade value charts and it kind of you're overpaying a little bit, but you're not overpaying as much as you think. And here's the thing:
yeah.
I'm giving up a first round pick next year for the Lions because I got Carolina's pick. I think Carolina's gonna suck next year unless they got Derek Carr. Then that throws this whole freaking scenario out the board. But like, I think Derek Carr is going to New Orleans, so I'm not really worried about it.
Yeah, I no, I do love that. I love trading back there. And I do think. Give me one second. Oh, you still there?
Yeah,
Oh, okay. I had a call coming through. No, I do think that they're a good candidate for that. I don't mind trading down. So yeah, who did you have with your first round selection?
so with the ninth pick of the 2023 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Tyree Wilson, defensive end from Texas Tech. And listen,
Okay.
the reason I'm doing this, I'm telling you right now, Tyler, the reason I'm doing this is simple. I want a freaking gauntlet of guys up on that defensive line. Listen, if they're gonna go and if teams are gonna try to, dipsy daddle and start throwing the ball against us, they're gonna have a freaking issue. I want total savages. We already got one savage in Houston. That guy's a freaking madman. He's over here contorting his body like he's a gymnast. We got freaking Hutch that's like 6'7" and like built like a shit brick house. Like, cool, we're good. You got Pascal. You got Romeo Aquara. If you don't get cut, you got maybe if you sign John Kaminsky back, you got Lee McNeil. All great. I just want to build this defensive line where you're going for the next 3 to 4 years. We don't have to worry about a contract extension or nothing. Just we're gonna go for it. We're gonna build the best defensive line, and if you have the best defensive line, you put yourself in a position to win a lot of freaking football games.
No, 100%. I mean, and I think it's very important that we see where where we can shore up on those weak spots. I mean, and like I said, like you said in previous mocks, or not mocks, I'm sorry, like you said in previous podcasts, a lot of this stuff's going to be addition by subtraction. So even though we may have had some good units in certain areas, if we can get some guys for good value, like say we replace Romeo Aquara or Charles Harris with,
Mhm.
say, a guy like Tyree Wilson, then I mean, right there, you're now bumping down what was our starter. Now their depth, and now the guy coming in has a chance to really be something special. And I mean, our defensive line is shaping up to have a ton of depth and be really special. And I think it's, building through the trenches is one of the most important things in a football team. And I think Brad Holmes really values that a lot. So I don't hate it. Just like I was saying, he's definitely my honorable mention when it comes to another guy you could select within that top 10. So good pick. So I like it.
Yeah, go with
Yep,
your
I like
next.
it.
Go with your next pick.
Yeah, so in my draft after taking Christian Gonzalez, which I do feel is a bit of a stretch, I just kind of went and got my guy. I didn't do any trades in this specific mock. Um, my next pick at 18 was Trenton Simpson, linebacker out of Clemson. Smaller linebacker, but certainly has a lot of physicality. and he is quick. And he has, a lot of side to side speed. So I think putting a guy that's kind of versatile, he kind of reminds me a little bit of like an Isaiah Simmons. So he can line up in the slot, he can line up at safety, he can line up in the box, and for being a smaller framed guy, he can tackle, man. He can put the smackdown on people. So I took Trenton Simpson at 18 and kind of shore up that athleticism in our linebacking core that we so desperately need.
Yeah, so with my pick, my next pick is going to be the 18th pick, obviously. And listen, I feel like you can go a couple different ways with it. But if I'm getting Jalen Ramsey with pick 18, I have to do a double dip. And I know you directed a corner and you kind of double dip, but I'm only picking one corner because I just feel this is the best way to go about it. But I'm going to get Cam Smith from South Carolina at pick 18. I think he's a guy who can really be on the opposite side of Jalen Ramsey. I feel like he can learn from Jalen Ramsey. I feel like Jalen Ramsey would like to. I feel like they have the similar the similar traits to their game where they're kind of like ball hawks and they like to play physical. I feel like Jalen Ramsey would be a perfect guy in the locker room for Cam Smith. Being that they're the same player and they like to play man ball. I love it. I would love it. Cam Smith at South Carolina when he was against Jalen Hyatt and in that Tennessee South Carolina game where Tennessee looked like they were just out to lunch. They weren't ready to play. And Cam Smith, he shut down Jalen Hyatt the whole game. And I loved watching that because it shows that, one, I know South Carolina is not a good football team, but it shows me that when you go against the best players, you can shut them down. And that's really that's something that you need. And if I could put Jalen Ramsey on the opposite side of Cam Smith and then put Jerry Jacobs in the slot, I think we're winning some football games. Not to mention with the defensive end that we drafted, Tyree Wilson with the 9th pick that I drafted. I'm getting to the quarterback. My corners are they're gonna have ample amount of time. They're gonna be able to play some ball hawking style, in that backfield.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good move. So you got Tyree Wilson and Cam Smith as your top two. Your first two picks. With me, my third pick at 48, I actually went another corner. I got two corners in this draft, and this is that 48 a cornerback from Mississippi State, Emmanuel Forbes. Emmanuel Forbes is one of my favorite prospects in this draft. He bounces off the tape.
You double dipped on corners?
Oh yeah. Listen. You go from having Jeff Okudah, Will Harris, and Jerry Jacobs and Amani Arouari as your four corners, right? In this scenario, now all of a sudden you have Jalen Ramsey, Christian Gonzalez, Emmanuel Forbes, Jeff Okudah, and for depth you have Jerry Jacobs. That is a strong line cornerback position.
Here's where I'm gonna.
Hold on.
Here's where I'm gonna spar with you though. You can't put Jerry Jacobs as a depth guy because he's way better than a depth guy.
But hear me out here. In this scenario, I am completely comfortable, and I know this sounds crazy to some people. For me, it's not, because I've been a big Jeff Okudah fan for a long time. In this scenario, I am leaving a wide open door for either a position change or a walk out the door for Jeff Okudah. I've seen he had a good year in the beginning of the year last year. Either he's going to have to figure it out, or he's either going to have to get a position change, maybe to safety, or kind of an out hybrid linebacker, or he's going to have to pack his bags. I've been a Jeff defender and a Jeff believer since day one, and I still think he has room for an NFL roster and to be a good player. But in this scenario, we have the NFL's worst cornerback group, and I needed to add two young guys that's going to have a lot of room to grow and develop, and it takes a while for cornerbacks to grow and develop. So I don't hate it at all.
That's exactly why I'm going to kind of critique your pick a little bit.
Emmanuel Forbes is a lot like
I like Emmanuel Forbes. I love Emmanuel Forbes. I think he's spitting image Seriously, I watched him at Mississippi State. He's great. When you triple dip on corners, though, here's the issue you run into. Two of these guys one is it takes time for cornerbacks to develop. Okay, Like we've just seen with Jeff Okuda, like this was pretty much his first full year of playing, and he wasn't ready to play yet. Maybe in the second year he turns it around, and having a guy like Jalen Ramsey on the other side, maybe him and Jerry Jacobs look like they're legit. And that's why I was going out to get Cam Smith because like look, I could put Jeff Okuda in a slot. You can make a bunch of different moves when you move corners in there. I mean, you're just asking for trouble. And the second part about it is, I don't think they're going away from Will Harris. I think they love Will Harris. To be honest, I think that he's one of those guys that they think that is like something that they want in their corners. Listen, you don't have to like Will Harris. I don't like Will Harris at all. I think he's a decent player. I mean, but like using spots, he would be pretty damn good. But I just think that if you use Will Harris in certain situations, I think that could be a huge
And
help.
to be fair, um, in this mock scenario, I did this before there was more concrete evidence of Jalen Ramsey coming to Detroit, but I personally I think that we're in a position where you can get best player available, and you go after who you go after, and you find a spot on the field for some of these guys. So I don't like I said, if we replace Amani, Harris, and Jacobs, and I mean replaces in like in the lineup or like in the role that they were necessarily in. You replace those guys with Ramsey, Gonzalez, and Forbes. I mean, you got 10 times better. But the way that we rotate players and the way that we use guys, I very well think that there is a room for 5 or 6 corners on this team that can like get a healthy amount of playing time. So I don't hate double dipping like that, but I can see. I'll just tell you, I see the opposition, and I understand where you're coming from. But in this scenario, for me, it's get the best guys that we can. And if even though I took Gonzalez early, if I got Forbes staring me at the face and it's almost pick 50, it's hard for me to turn it down.
I get it.
That's just my reasoning behind it.
I'm just going with I think that like if you go with Emmanuel Forbes in that situation, like I think it's like overkill. But I'm not gonna keep killing your draft because it's like whatever. But with my pick, with the one I got with the Carolina trade, I'm picking Siaka Ika, the defensive tackle from Baylor.
He's somebody I was looking at as well.
Yeah,
So
I kind of go back and forth on him and Mozzie Smith. I like Mozzie Smith from Michigan. I think he's going to be a guy who could be, someone that you could really like as a defensive tackle. I like putting him with Ali McNeil. I think the way that Ika plays the run, I mean, he penetrates so well against the run. Like you've seen it when when they played Texas, and he was penetrating Bijan Robinson the whole freaking time. And
I think he
Robinson,
can be our Snacks Harrison type of guy like we used to
yeah,
have back in the day.
the NFL comparison, I'm interested to see what he does at the combine because a lot of people think his athleticism isn't that great or his speed isn't that great. One of the things you read is like, he sometimes he drops his head taken on a block and loses sight of the ball. You don't like to see that, but one thing I do like about it is he's not a guy who's going to rush the passer, and I would get like I would try to bring back Kaminsky just for that case. And if I draft Tyree Wilson, I could put on a third down, I could put James Houston in at defensive tackle, or maybe I can move Tyree Wilson to the defensive tackle for the pass rush and put Houston on the outside. I just look at it like last year we struggled stopping the run for for a majority of the year.
Yeah,
I felt like Siaka Ika would be a great pick. I think
just
no
a
matter
kind of a body eater up the middle.
yeah, you need a guy who's just gonna man blocks because one of the things we've seen, I love Isaiah Buggs. I think he's a great player, but one of the things we've seen last year was he was always getting bodied by other guys, and I just didn't like it. And I felt like this was a significant part of the team where you had to go make a move to get a guy like Ika. I mean, I know a lot of people wanted Deron Payne, but even his run PFF grade was not that great. So I was glad that Washington franchise tagged him. But I look at a guy like Ika; he's going to be under team control for 4 years. You got a nasty defensive line, which you just put with the draft of Tyree Wilson. You drafted last year. You drafted Hutchinson and Houston and Pascal. Like you're loading up for Bear on the defensive line. I like the young players on that defensive line because they can all grow together, and that's going to be a great thing for that team.
Definitely, definitely. Um, I no, I agree.
Yeah,
So let me see.
I just think here's another thing, Tyler. I want to run this past you because I don't know if you agree with this or whatever. I feel like if you put a little bit of emphasis on the defensive line in this draft, especially like the defensive tackle and the edge, I feel like you can make your defense. You can make both sides of the trenches strengths on
Yeah.
both sides of the ball. So that's why I feel this way.
Yep. So no, I completely agree. Um, and I uh I have in my fourth spot at 55. And I, after seeing his combine and seeing the evaluations on him, I don't think he makes it this far at all. But he was available in this mock draft, so I took him. And that is number 55, Kalijah Cansey, DT out of Pittsburgh. He is he's a little short. He's about 6'1", about 280.
Yeah,
But man, he is a dog. He can get to the quarterback. I believe he had 9 sacks last year.
he's a guy.
As
He's a guy I like too. I really
Yeah,
do.
as a DT spot. And obviously when you get undersized DT, slightly undersized DT from Pitt, I mean, people are immediately going to go Aaron Donald, right?
Yeah.
But this guy has a lot of he's nasty. He plays nasty football. He has a good feel for the game, and just watching some of his highlights and some of his film breakdown and the all 22, just he's looking like if he fell to the 50s or 60s, it's going to be an absolute steal of the century. So you got to go get a guy like that.
Yeah, the one thing I like about Cansey, like I really do think that he's going to be a great player in the NFL. Like the way that he plays the game, like the sacks, and I know he's a smaller guy.
Well,
Um,
the thing is, he's kind of it's weird. It's kind of similar to, and this is the way that it is similar to Donald, is that he's a kind of a big dude, but he plays really small and he plays skinny. You know what I mean? He uses like kind of finesse and speed moves to get in between guys, but he's big and strong enough to power you, like overpower you while he's doing it. It's strange. Um, it's like an underdeveloped Aaron Donald type, because I mean Aaron Donald, in my opinion, is one of the top 5 defensive players in NFL history. From the defensive line, I should rephrase that. One of the top 5 or top 10 defensive linemen, especially DTs in NFL history. There's been a lot other great defensive players in other positions, but Aaron Donald is phenomenal on the D line, and he is an all time great. And saying that someone is like an underdeveloped version of him is not an insult in the least bit.
well, I got bad news for you, Tyler.
Okay, let's hear it.
Cansey just ran the 40.
Yeah, 4.68 or 4.67, wasn't it?
That is the fastest 40 time by a defensive tackle since 2000.
Yeah, and people thought it was crazy that Jalen Carter was, or not Jalen. What's his name last year? Big old fat dude.
Oh, Jordan Davis.
Jordan Davis. Jordan Davis. I don't know why you slipped my mind. That's the reason everyone was going so crazy about Jordan Davis, because he ran off 4.76 at the size he was. I can see. I mean, dude.
Jordan
I
Davis
mean,
is a freak though, and I
listen,
like
man. It's not a Dwight Freeney time, but that still blows my mind. He ran like a 4.39 at 275 pounds.
that's when you're that big and that fast, that's kind of scary. But you know
It's nuts.
what I like about your pick though is again it hits on what the most important part of the team is, and you're trying to define the weaknesses of the team, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna go get a defensive tackle who's gonna be able to rush the passer, get upfield. He's fast. He's got instincts. He had the sacks. You said 9 sacks on the year last year. You know, being at Pitt, you play in the ACC. It's not as there's not a lot of great offensive linemen in that league. I mean, there is some good offensive linemen, not great, but if you're going to be able to rush the passer like that, you take notice of that. Like 9 sacks on a year, it doesn't matter where you went to school, you definitely take notice of that. But I'm glad I'm full endorsement of your pick. Obviously, he just ran a 4.67, so I don't think he's going to be there at that spot. But
Yeah, I was surprised. Sometimes you get surprised on some of these mocks and where people fall to, and I think it's funny because you see a lot of criticism people online too of like, okay, yeah, right, dude, that's never gonna like look. I'm just going through this mock man and I'm picking who's in front of me. Like it's not my fault that they said that he was going to go this late.
My dog has endorsed your picks, just so you know.
Awesome.
So my next pick, honestly, we're gonna go totally. This is where we're gonna go off the board. Drew Sanders, the linebacker from Arkansas. He dropped this.
I like Drew Sanders. I do. I like Drew Sanders. That's a good pick.
Yeah, he's a guy who transferred from Alabama. If you watch him, he's a. What I like. Okay, so when I'm looking at linebackers and I'm looking at like guys that I'm kind of looking at for the Lions, I want a sideline to sideline guy. If you look at the guys that Kansas City has.
Is it funny? He plays so Alabama. I know it sounds weird to say unless you like know football, know college football. He plays like Alabama. Like he is an Alabama guy. Like I don't care that he went to Arkansas last year. That guy's Alabama.
Well, you could definitely see where he got some Alabama coaching the way he plays. But like I was about to say, like I like those linebackers to go sideline to sideline. I want my linebacker to be fast enough to get to the ball carrier, either on either sideline, like Malcolm Rodriguez did last year. That would be great. But like obviously, you're looking to get another linebacker in there and try to make that position.
Yeah, you need it on the other side of the field too. You know what I mean? You want to have that on both sides. I like that pick a lot. Yeah,
and I think with Levante, if by us signing Levante David in this scenario, I think it's good to learn from a guy who has as great as play recognition skills as Levante David has. So that's a reason I went with Drew Sanders, because I think in the future when you look forward, you can go Drew Sanders, Malcolm Rodriguez, and then you can add in your third linebacker, whether it's Derek Barnes or it's not Derek Barnes, but you have the opportunity to add on the linebacking core, and that's what you do. And I don't think Drew Sanders is going to be there at 48. I would be vastly surprised if he was. But like we're doing this mock draft and everything changes at a moment's notice. So for all you people out there that want to say like, oh, that's not going to happen, no one on planet Earth thought that like a guy like who was it last year? Derek Stingley went to go above Sauce Gardner, but the Houston Texans were dumb and they changed the draft for a lot of teams, especially the Jets.
Yeah, I mean, there's people that reach every year, and there's things that happen. I mean, there were literally
we had a freaking general manager in Detroit who reached for Teez Tabor and Jelani Tavai. I'm gonna repeat, Jelani Tavai, who went to Hawaii and looked out of place at Hawaii. I mean, now he's turned into a pretty decent pro, but second round pick, holy mother of God.
Well, like I mean, dude, look, I mean, there were some clowns that were claiming. I mean, they were hoping Malik Willis was going to go 2 to the Lions last year, and
I totally remember that.
That dude went into the third.
I remember that last year. That was so funny. There was a guy in the sports radio station in Detroit. Everyone knows who he is. He's in the middays. Doug Karsh. He does play-by-play for Michigan football. He wanted Malik Willis at 2, and I'm like, holy shit, we have gone totally off the board.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you're going. I mean, that guy fell to the third. I mean, and like I said, he was mocked,
and he's
in the top
okay, and
20 consistently.
And everyone was telling me that this guy was a guy that was going to be like a franchise-changing quarterback, especially on Detroit Lions news. And I was like, holy shit, like these people are actually buying this stuff. Like he went to Tennessee, and like if Tennessee does need a quarterback, if Malik Willis is not, if he was any good, he would overplace. He would step in the place of Ryan Tannehill, and they'd actually look good. There was people who were like, just give us Tannehill back. Like, just give us him back. Like, I can't take much more of this Malik Willis guy. So that's why
if you're asking for Tannehill back, you're not doing well.
Yeah, it's like asking, like, you just bought a new house and you're like, oh my god, like just give me back the cardboard box.
So I've got my last 4 picks, and I'll go over these a little bit quicker because they're a little bit later guys.
Yep.
I've got at 81. I've got Jack Campbell, linebacker, Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
I like his height.
Love that pick.
He's a little bit stiff, a little bit, but I mean, he's a tall linebacker. He kind of gives you some some kind of that tall linebacker, some reminiscence of the Stork, some Ted Hendricks coming back a little bit. He plays a little bit more old school football, and he said he's tall and he has decent ball skills. I believe he was a tight end in high school. And then we have at 154, just to add a little bit of tight end depth, I've got Luke Schoonmaker from the Michigan Wolverines.
Schoon.
Um,
Schoonmaker,
Schoon,
baby.
Schoonmaker. Okay, yeah, I'm not a Michigan fan, man, so I mess up these names sometimes.
I'm not a
Then
big fan either.
I've got 183. I've got us getting Deuce Vaughn out of Kansas State. He actually kind of eerily reminds me of DeAndre Swift, to be honest with you. And I got Deuce Vaughn at 183. And then at 194, I've got Max Duggan, who will fill up that kind of long term backup role that could potentially develop into a starter at some point. Maybe when Jared Goff, gets older and maybe doesn't have it anymore. Yeah, Jack Campbell, Luke Schoonmaker, Deuce Vaughn, and Max Duggan are my final four picks in this mock.
Okay, so out of those four picks, I really love the pick of Jack Campbell. I think Jack Campbell is he's gonna be a tough linebacker. I think I kind of compare Jack Campbell to like the guy that's at that for Kansas City is Jack Cichy. You know,
Mm-hmm.
he's a good player. He's not gonna look out of sorts. He's just smart. Like that's the kind of guys that you want on the football team. Like you want on your team. Like they're not gonna look out of place at any time. Like that's just the way it goes. So I do like the Jack Campbell one. The Deuce Vaughn one is an interesting one because not only did Deuce Vaughn win me a parlay last year, which credit to Deuce Vaughn because that was an amazing two touchdown effort. I think he was playing against I think it was Baylor or something. But to watch that guy, like he's so smooth the way he runs, like he really is. And
Oh yeah.
I would love I would love Deuce Vaughn, but I just think that like if you look at Deuce Vaughn, the one thing I worry about is his durability. Like
Yeah.
you said it was DeAndre Swift, and I kind of agree because like DeAndre Swift, the one thing that DeAndre Swift does all the time is he just can't stay healthy. That's one of the issues that I have with DeAndre Swift, and you have the same issue. Um, he can't stay healthy. Like that's the major thing, and I'm just kind of like over it. Like I don't want the same running back that we have here, and I like the Schoonmaker one. I think Schoonmaker is like a really reliable tight end. I don't think he's a guy um that's
Yeah, I don't
gonna
think
get
he's ever going to compete for like he's never going to be like a top 20 tight end in the league or
no.
anything, but
But I think
good reliable depth.
he's gonna be a reliable guy. I think that he could be like a guy like I'm searching for the name. I think oh man. What's the guy? I think he's just a reliable tight end. I don't think he's anything special, but I don't think he's gonna cost you a game. Kind of like a Brock Wright. Like I don't think he's gonna be
Yeah,
he's
or like a ceiling could be kind of more like what's the dude Blake Jarwin.
oh yeah, Blake Jarwin or Dalton Schultz. Yeah, that I could groove with those comparisons. Like those are good comparisons. Like I kind of Dalton Schultz was actually the one I was thinking of. Dalton Schultz, the tight end from Dallas. So I like that a lot. I think Schoonmaker is going to be. I remember Blake Jarwin. He had that one catch that one time with Dak Prescott where he saved Dak Prescott's ass. You know, we all know how Dak Prescott will overthrow people all the time. But here's the thing. So I got my picks, and I think I'm down. Yeah, so I got five picks left. I got pick 55, which you went over. I picked the offensive guard.
At
Not
55.
Wait, no, I didn't pick an offense guard. My bad. I'm looking at the wrong freaking mock draft.
Yeah, I was gonna say 55. Yeah, that was when you took. Oh, did you not? I thought you picked 55 already. I thought you picked.
No, I
Whoever
picked
was.
48. I
Oh, okay. My bad. My bad.
at 55 I took Sam Laporta, the tight end from Iowa.
Okay.
I
No,
do
he's decent. Tight end,
I
you baby.
I don't know why, but he gives me George Kittle vibes.
Okay.
He gives me George Kittle vibes. Pick 81, I went running back and I went Chase Brown from Illinois. I love Chase Brown. The way he played against Illinois, I mean
No, Chase Brown's a beast.
the way he played at Illinois, like the way he ran the holes, I love out of that guy. Like I can only imagine him and Jamal Williams and the same, coming out, and then you mix DeAndre Swift in the game. I think that would be absolutely phenomenal.
The fun part about these drafts is that like actually envisioning these guys on your team, like not what I mean, not just doing it, but actually envisioning it.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what I'm like. I'm like when I look at Chase Brown, I go, okay, I can see him running through the holes and getting some yards and I think he could be a complete steal of the draft. I think there's two running backs that I look at as a steal of the draft. I love Keandre Miller from TCU. I think he's going to be a stud, and I think Chase Brown's going to be an absolute stud too. And if you really want to outside the box name Roshan Johnson, who is behind Bijan Robinson, I think he's going to be pretty damn good too.
There you go.
So with
So after Chase Brown, who we got next?
so with my after my Chase Brown pick, which is going to be pick 180 154. God, these numbers are screwing me up because we're going so fast. At pick 154, I'm picking Braden Daniels, the offensive guard from Utah.
Okay.
I like Braden Daniels. I think one of the things that he's a mean streak player. I think put him next to Frank Ragnow and Sewell. Dude, you can have the meanest right side of the line that you would ever have in any league.
And I agree. I think we do need an offensive lineman at some point. I kept seeing a name that's been kind of circulating around, and I keep seeing him in different rounds. And I'm going to go over my dream mock next because although it's a dream mock and it's kind of fun, I actually do think there's a realistic possibility that a decent amount of those could happen, and I'll explain why. But as far that name that I keep seeing thrown around there, and like the anywhere from like the second to fourth for us is Steve Avila out of TCU.
Oh yeah, I wanted him so bad, but he's gonna go early because he's gonna test off the charts.
Yeah, so he's looking like a really mean, gritty, athletic fucking guard, man. So it'd be cool to see him if he were to slide.
I love that TCU offensive line. I thought they were very, they were just these. They were really veteran led, and they really just made some great blocks for their running backs, especially in that game against Michigan, the college football playoff. Sorry, Michigan fans, but that's the way it was. Like they played so good, and you just love to see it. Like you really do love to see a guy like that as an offensive guard. He was just powerful. But I like Braden Daniels because the guy was a 3-star recruit coming out of high school. I mean, he's got some really good characteristics to him. A lot of people, they think that he's in a zone running scheme, whatever. I think he'd be a great player to put next to Penei Sewell and Frank Ragnow. I mean, to be honest, we had Coyote Oshika as one of our guards this year, and he didn't look bad. I mean, if you just get a guy who's suitable, he doesn't even have to be at the level of Jonah Jackson or Taylor Decker or Frank Ragnow or Penei Sewell. He just has to be decent enough. And I like Braden Daniels because the way he blocked against the run was fantastic. So I love that pick. So with my next pick in the draft, in our mock draft, pick 183, I have Aiden O'Connell, the quarterback from Purdue.
Yeah, I don't. I've seen a lot of good things about him, man. I see a lot of like high end back QB2 with like definitely some QB1 potential if if learning behind the right guy. I've been seeing a lot on him, so I can't
He's
like
he's not a
he's not a
guy.
bad guy.
He's not a guy who's going to be like outside the pocket. He's not going to be a runner or whatever. But I just like the way that he plays. Like to be honest, like he doesn't have this ultra. If he had this great arm, he would be in the. He would obviously be in the first round, but his short passing. But he has a deep ball that is really really good, and I just like that. And to have him in the same room as Jared Goff, I think that would be a huge step up, especially in your quarterback depth. I mean, like obviously Jared Goff's not going to be at risk of losing his job to Aiden O'Connell, but I think that would give more reassurance that Jared Goff would be able to help Aiden O'Connell, maybe help him with recognizing blitzes and doing that kind of stuff when he's on a scout team. That would be
Yeah,
pretty impressive, and I like that. I toyed with getting DTR earlier, but I just like the Aiden O'Connell, especially at that spot. I love it. And my next pick, I gotta go kicker because I think kicker is one of the most underappreciated spots on a team, and that's Jake Moody from Michigan. Here's where I love Jake Moody. I'm not a Michigan fan. I thought he was a great kicker. The way he kicked some clutch kicks, I thought he was just money Moody. That's what they call him, and he's money. And listen, we had the money badger last year, and I like Badgley, but I don't like him that much. And I think Jake Moody, being a hometown kid, I think he would love to be a Detroit Lion. And let's be honest, between him or Chad Ryland, you can't go wrong because they got powerful legs and they're accurate. So it a lot of people would get pissed because you drafted a kicker early. I mean, in the 6th round or whatever. Screw that, because the Bengals did it with what's the kid's name? Uh, Evan McPherson from Florida, and then last year Cleveland did it with Chase McLaughlin or whatever from, I think, I forget where he was from, but they drafted a kicker. Kickers are important. If you don't think they're important, just look at Justin Tucker. He is an absolute freaking machine. Not every kicker is going to be Justin Tucker, but you just want a reliable kicker because we seen with Dallas. If you don't have a reliable kicker, you're in a bad situation.
Absolutely. No, I like those picks. I like the Moody pick a lot. I see um I see the reasoning behind all those picks, and I think this is one of those drafts where we really load up on some top level talent in the first few rounds, but we actually may have the luxury of using the later rounds to build a little bit of depth. I think that great teams always have a lot of depth, and that's one thing we've never really been able to have is a lot of depth. Just because typically when you're trying to save a certain position group or just kind of be a complete football team, you're always worried about getting that star talent up front. But once you start hitting on these drafts, like Jesus Christ, Brad Holmes, not Bob Quinn, Brad Holmes has hit on so many of these picks that we're actually finally in a position where we can kind of afford to draft for depth in the 5th, 6th, 7th rounds now, which is something that we haven't been able to do for a long time. So, I'm looking forward to seeing what that looks like, and I think that a lot of your picks there make sense. So,
Yeah, I just think that you said about depth. Depth is so important, especially in the
well,
NFL.
that's what's the between the good and the great teams. I mean,
Yeah,
some of these great teams, like dude, some of these great teams, the Eagles and the Chiefs and all these guys. I mean, you might look and be like, oh, their team doesn't look that stacked, but they've got depth at every position.
I mean, look at the 49ers. They made it to the conference championship with practically a 7th round rookie quarterback in the team. That's pretty impressive. But
Oh yeah,
you
absolutely.
have this dream draft. Let me hear this.
Yeah, so I have a dream draft here. So I am in this scenario. I've got Jalen Carter, and we did double dip in the position again, but it's linebacker this time. So we've got um, 6th overall, Jalen Carter dropping to the Lions due to some ongoing off the field issues. Um, I know that it doesn't really seem to be enough to scare certain teams, but if there's a few teams that are kind of on the edge about it and it spooks somebody, um, I'm kind of hoping and praying for a miracle. I'm on the other end of look. I don't condone some of the behaviors that were shown or some of the bad judgment that was made, but look, prayers to the families that were affected in that race between him and that other car that held those other individuals. But people have lapses of judgment and people make mistakes. It wasn't him directly that resulted in the death of someone. It was in that he was kind of engaging in activity of a street race that two other people in another car were crashed and passed away. Um, Look, it was poor judgment, but I do think that people learn from their mistakes. And he's a young kid, and I really believe in our staff and the guys around the building that maybe have gone through tough times in their young life and their young career. So I think that people are gonna. I think that if he falls to 6, I think that I've always, contrary to what Todd McDumbass or Todd McShay, sorry, always says. I do think I've always seen Jalen Carter from what I've seen as far as things he does around the community and he does for Georgia. That he actually is a really high character, good guy. He's just a young kid who made a dumb and immature mistake and was out drinking and racing with his buddies. So it's just one of those things. But I'm hoping that he falls to the Lions at 6 in this scenario. So, um, let's see. In
Yeah,
and
I did like that Jalen Carter pick. Obviously, we all know what's going on with Jalen Carter. This is gonna happen a lot with these kids that get the NIL. That's just my opinion. It's gonna happen a lot more because you're giving kids that are 18, 19, 20. I mean, the maturity isn't always there. We know that for a fact because me and you were 18, 19, 20 at one point. But
right,
when you look at it, like they're getting major money and they're in fast cars, and they were saying that Jalen Carter wasn't a track hawk. I mean, I'm 28 years old, and I don't even think I would trust myself in a track hawk, to be honest. So I, I could see where it happens so quickly that you don't really think about it in the broad spectrum. I mean, I know all these asshats that's out there. They're like, "Oh, I would never have done it." Shut the hell up! All these people that say that
right.
they would never do something.
Hey, listen, man. I'm pretty positive we've all done something that could have gotten us or someone else killed. As crazy as that sounds, and I'm not condoning that at all. But I
No,
mean,
no. It
you,
happens.
you
Like
make
you take
you make irrational decisions when you're
yeah,
young, and
you make an irrational decision driving down a highway or something. You it could always backfire. So what's the rest of your draft to get to it?
yeah,
Just
yeah.
wanted to go out through.
Yep. So, I just wanted to cover that real quick. That I think Jalen Carter is a huge possibility. These next picks, as far as this dream draft for mine goes, is going to be Devon Weatherspoon at 18. Um, Emmanuel, or not, sorry, Devin Witherspoon at 18. Drew Sanders at 48. Michael Meyer at 55. And then we got the last four picks being Jack Campbell, Jackson Kirkland, offensive tackle from Washington. That guy is a monster. He's like 6'7", 330, and he plays nasty.
What a beast that
And
guy
then
is.
yeah, and then I traded back into the seventh round, and my last three picks were Deuce Vaughn, Max Duggan, and Jake Moody.
If we got
If that was
Michael,
the haul I got
if we got
at
Michael,
55.
if we got Michael Mayer at 55, I'd be so happy. I like Emmanuel Forbes. There you go, double dipping with corners again. I don't know what it
No,
is.
no, I
Double
switched. There
dipping.
was I did Devin Witherspoon and then Drew Sanders at 48.
Oh, you went Drew Sanders. Okay,
Yep,
okay.
yep.
Because
I switched that one up.
So Jackson Kirkland, I like that pick. I like Max Duggan too. I don't know how his NFL arm is going to be. That's why it's going to be interesting to see what happens at the combine. But Jackson Kirkland, that guy plays with such a mean streak, dude. I love it.
Yeah.
He kind of reminds me of a poor man's version of Taylor Decker.
Well, he
And
was rated in like the 150s and 160s in these drafts. So like
I
I
don't
would.
know if he can transfer to guard though. That's the one thing I worry about. But it's just
Yeah, I mean that's definitely a thought, but it's the same kind of thing. One of those things where you get a bunch of nasty guys on that line, and you're just like, hey, go play somewhere. Like we need you here, go here.
that's exactly it. So listen, a lot of stuff is going to happen. It's going to change this whole draft. We're going to look stupid in another week because the combine is going to happen. There's going to be guys that rocket up the board. There's going to be guys that drop down on the board. I think that's
Well,
going to be
even me right now saying, "Oh, I want Cansey at 55," and then watching on the damn TV just ran a 4.65. Like, okay, never mind.
yeah. It's like it's funny because I was looking at my draft and I was like, okay, Drew Sanders probably isn't going to be there. Everything could change in a minute. I mean, we could all play speculative of what's going to happen, but
That's why these are fun.
we're just going off what could happen. And by the time we get to the draft, we're gonna be like so over the mock drafts. But we're gonna do a mock draft after the combine. So we'll do a mock draft 2.0, and then after free agency settles down for a minute, we'll do our 3.0 and then the final mock. So that'd be fun as hell. But
And that final mock will probably be somewhere about a week before draft time.
yeah, a week before draft time, that'll be a
Yep,
good one.
just give something people to stew over.
Yeah, so it's gonna be fun. When you do these mock drafts, it's so difficult because a lot of times you go, okay, this guy might be there, and then you're talking yourself into it. Maybe he's gonna be there, and then you're like, then at draft time, you're like, okay, he's not there. So,
Dude,
uh,
I also saw the Raiders get Cleveland Farrell at 4. So I mean, anything is possible, man. Like
well, what
you
was
get a
that?
guy reach up that bad for somebody, like that blows the whole draft board open.
Well, what was that one draft where I think it was I think it was that Cleveland Farrell draft, and then there was a guy. There's a bunch of drafts where someone just takes someone. It's usually the Raiders too. I don't know what it is
The
about the
Cleveland
Raiders.
Farrell one is where we got Hawk at. Was where we got Hawk at in 8 or whatever.
Oh, that was the draft. Yeah,
Yep, the draft.
that was a wild draft. But yeah, it's just interesting to note. and obviously everything's going to change, but I thought both of our drafts were well put together. So
Yeah,
I think people
I
are really, I think real people are really, really going to enjoy this episode of the podcast, and I think we're going to put it on YouTube and just let it go. But
well, it's one of those things too, man. As this stuff comes up, like you said, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that is changing, but I mean, you think it's hard for us to just, I mean, not hard, but you think it's tough as a fan. Like, oh, who do I go for? Who do I pick? Well, what happens when you're in a huge room and you got guys that you thought would be not even a chance at being available at 6 or 18, and next thing you know, you're staring them right in the face. You're like, your philosophy has to change on the drop of a dime. I mean, the Bears do something like go get like Harris Johnson at number one, then you're like, oh, whoa, whoa,
or
whoa, whoa, shit.
Skronsky, yeah,
You
dude,
know, you know,
I always tell people like all it would take is Arizona to trade out of that third pick, and then you have three quarterbacks go ahead of you, and it's like it leaves maybe a Jalen Carter or Will Anderson to come at you. That's all it takes. Like you go if someone gets happy about Will Levis, maybe someone drafts goes up and gets Will Levis. Like you don't know how this thing can go, and it's just fun because looking at all the scenarios, like you're gonna see everything happen in real time.
yep. And that's the fun part about being a fan is we get to sit back and enjoy, and maybe I'm dude. If Bob Quinn were still our GM, I would not have much faith heading into this free agency
But I feel
or
like
this
listen,
draft.
I feel like every Lions fan can say the same thing. Like in years past, you're like, holy shit, what are we gonna do at the draft? That's gonna totally be so freaking stupid. Like you're just like, oh my god, I'm kind of like you have an anxiety attack over what's gonna happen at the draft. With Brad Holmes, I'm like, okay, this dude's got it. Like, there's two GMs I don't worry about in this town. It used to be three, but then Troy Weaver decides to pick up every freaking first round pick from the gates of hell. I don't know what's going on with that. But there's only two general managers in this town that I have full confidence in 100% because it seems like whatever they do, they just turn water into wine. And it's Steve Eiserman and it's Brad Holmes. Those are two guys, like, you look at their drafts in the past, like, 2 years, 3 years, especially with Brad Holmes just coming here. Obviously, it's easier to rebuild in the NFL. But, like, you look at the drafts and you look at some of the prospects that they've been able to put together and players that they've been put together on this roster, like, you're just like, holy crap, like, these guys can really
Well,
draft.
think about this, dude. Think about this, right? The Lions were 9-7 in 2015, and their draft class that year was Taylor Decker, Ashawn Robinson, Graham Glasgow, Miles Killebrew, Joe Dahl, Antoine Williams, Jake Rudock, Anthony Zettel, Jimmy Landis, and Dwayne Washington. That might be the worst draft class I've ever seen in my entire life of any team of any sport.
Whew. Well, Taylor Decker was good. What was that one year? What was that one year? I'm thinking of the one year. Give me. I'm trying to think of it. Hold up. There was one year where that class was bad too. I'm trying to think of it. What was the year? I think it was the year we picked Ebron.
Mm-hmm.
No, no, I take it back. Because I'm looking at it right now. Okay, so um, got it. It won't pull up right now. Okay, I'm good now. It was 20. It was 20. Okay, there was a couple years where it was pretty bad. So in 2014, this is pretty bad. Eric Ebron, Kyle Van Noy, Travis Swanson, Nevin Lawson, which he wasn't that bad, but he was a pass interference machine. Larry Webster, Larry Webster, Karan Reed,
That's an insanely horrid draft class.
T.J. Jones, the wide receiver from Notre Dame, and Nate Free is the kicker. Oh my god, that was horrible.
I
Oh my
uh
god.
I always had like a soft spot. It was like a fan favorite, TJ Jones.
I thought he was pretty decent, but man, that was it went to hell. Yeah, there's another one I'm thinking of. The one I was thinking of off the top of my head. Listen to this draft. This was 2012. Riley Reef, Ryan Broyles, Bill Bentley, Ronald Lewis, Tahir Whitehead, which he was pretty good. Chris Greenwood, Jonte Green, and Travis Lewis. Holy shit! This guy's pick.
Oh man.
Man, we've had some bad drafts in Detroit. Holy mother of God! Even 2019, like that, with the Hawkinson draft, Devy, Will Harris. Will Harris hasn't been as bad. Austin Bryant, Aware, Fulgham, Johnson. There's only like 3 players from that 2019 draft that are on the team. Holy mother of God! No wonder we're in such anxiety ridden mother guys when we get to the draft. Holy mother of God! Or what about the 2018 draft when he drafted Nick Bolden, Tyrell Crosby, Deshaun Hand? Oof. I'll tell you what, man. You go back in these drafts and you start getting anxiety about what could have been because you obviously had Matthew Stafford at that time, and with Brett Holmes, like I don't feel the same way that I felt back then. I think we all had hope, but it just never materialized.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm excited to see what this combine looks like. I'm excited to see what the rest of what the rest of how the rest of the shapes out. I think the draft's at the end of April.
Yeah, end of April, April 28th or something. We might be doing a live stream that night, so we'll kind of lay the groundwork for that. But this has been a great podcast, Tyler. We obviously got a lot done, and I think the people are going to really enjoy our picks, and they can snooze us all they want or bust our balls about the picks. But I think that next week when we come back with another mock draft after the combine, I think that'll be more kind of situated than this one that we have right now.
Yep, I think so too, and I think our 2 and our 3.0 will be obviously much more clarified. This is just kind of an early mock. So I'm looking forward to it, man. I'm really looking forward to watching the combine. If you guys don't have much going on, um, going on this weekend, there will be the combine going on all weekend. So it's cool to kind of see some of those guys. Dan, before we go, Dan Campbell said something. He's like, I don't draft. We don't draft players based on how they run around in their pajamas. So I thought that was kind of funny.
I love that
Uh,
I love that quote because you know how many times people fall in love with a guy just because of the combine.
oh yeah, and I
Like
think that gives us a big advantage because it allows guys to move around where they normally wouldn't have been taken. And one thing that he said that he really really likes the combine for him and Brad Holmes both is they get a chance to meet a lot of players face to face.
yeah, and he likes that.
They're big into leadership
The
and
one thing that I read that he
character.
the one thing I read that he likes is FBI, called football intelligence, and I love that term because listen, you can't have enough intelligent football players on the field. It doesn't mean that they're like freaking Einstein on they can solve like the nuclear code or anything. They just got to be smart in the football field. That's all I care about.
Right. Yep.
So
Exactly.
great podcast today, Tyler. Obviously, we're gonna get this up and loaded for the guys, for you guys. I don't probably. I think it's gonna go out Friday. We'll definitely see what you guys think of the mock draft, and next week we'll have an even better, clearer picture of the mock draft, especially with the combine going on this weekend. But this would be a good primer if you're listening to you're watching the combine. You could listen to this and you could be like, God dang, Tyler just told me to take a guy who just ran one of the fastest 40s ever.
At 55.
All right, we'll see you guys next week on another episode of the Detroit Lions News Podcast. Rate, subscribe, and you can follow us on Facebook at Detroit Lions News, Twitter at Detroit Pride, and you can follow us on Instagram. We're on there too. You can get all your news and notes. And yeah, we're gonna have some good things coming, so stay tuned for that. And we'll see you guys next week.
All right. See you guys.